Heyo, what is up everyone? It is the Alpha J of the Alpha J Show, and let's talk about Thanksgiving cartoon episodes. I've seen quite a few, but I want to talk about something I haven't in a while, that I do like to talk about, so let's do this. Now, if you didn't read the title, but was a fan of King of the Hill, would you think, like any other cartoon, it might have maybe one, possibly even 2 episodes about Thanksgiving? They have about 4 episodes on Thanksgiving, but I chose the one that I remember. This is Goodbye Normal Jeans. We start off with Bobby in home economics class. That girl in the back is going to get a C because she's just ironing the same spot on the shirt. Like, there's more shirt, iron the rest.
Bobby Hill, what are you doing?
I'm ironing underwater.
Don't test me, young man. I failed funnier kids than you.
Ooh, that's a double roast. So Bobby has to take home this cheerleader uniform and identify the stain, then wash it out. So the reason I picked this episode is because a lot of people really don't like Peggy. I tried to do my best and defend her in my character clash with Hank, which you guys should watch, is in the card and description, but I can't fully or even halfway excuse her actions in many episodes. This is one of those episodes. I usually talk about the plot, the jokes, and why I chose to review it, and who may like this particular episode. I will continue to do that here, but for this review I also want to talk about characters and intent. So if you want a more thorough bashing of Peggy Hill at one of her worst, this episode is the one for you. Well, the second, because I've done this before. However, that one was more about the giant plot hole in the story, whereas here the main problem with this episode is Peggy Hill as a character, and all of the implications and intent that comes with it.
What the? There better be a naked cheerleader under your bed.
Actually, there is. She died from suffocation when Bobby sat on his bed. She was gonna surprise him at night, but she didn't know Bobby weighed so much he needs reinforcements for the reinforcements that are already put on his bed. So Hank gets upset that Bobby has a cheerleader uniform, despite Bobby showing concern that he might fail home economics. He goes on a giant rant about how Bobby should fail home economics, because he's a guy, and that if he did pass, well, what's the point of finding a wife? I don't really need to comment on that so much because Hank proves that he would not have a problem with Bobby if he did such things, such as sewing or cooking. I'm not sure about you guys, but for me, since Hank is written to be a stubborn person who believes in these old conservative values, I cannot get mad at Hank for being in character. Sure, I don't agree, and I think it's pretty stupid that he would say that, but this is his character. Now, if his character was written to not be like this, and he was like this, then that would be a problem.
If Bobby learns to cook and clean for himself, what's his motivation to ever get married?
Home ec is not going to turn Bobby into a sissy.
Remember that. Trust me, you will want to remember that. So we get a side plot of Bill throwing a can into a cooler. Dale bets $1 million that Bill can't, and he doesn't do it again, which leads to exactly what you think. The plot being that Bill will give Dale $1 million in a sense. Not exactly, and I will talk about that side plot in a short while, but not yet.
There's no rule that says only women can do housework and only men can have careers. I can do both.
Remember that, trust me, you will want to remember that. So after washing out the stain, partially, and the resulting dress having holes in it, Peggy didn't realize that Hank's jeans were also in the wash, and therefore messed them up greatly. Hank expresses disappointment towards Peggy, and here's one thing I did notice. Despite this being Peggy's fault, 100%, she's the one who put the dress in, and she's the one who poured bleach, and she'd look like the biggest jerk in the world if she blamed Bobby because he started the machine. Despite all of that, she doesn't apologize. I get that it wasn't malicious, but it was still an accident that she caused. Instead, she says,
even world-famous surgeons do not get it right 100% of the time. They make mistakes, Hank. We're human.
And all this tells me is that Peggy is not ashamed for her actions. All she does is equate her mistakes to one of a surgeon's who's had tons of training, and if there were mistakes, it wouldn't be the same. And at the end of the day, carelessness is still carelessness. It doesn't matter when it comes from you, me, or anyone else. If you mess up someone's jeans in the wash and then downplay it with the whole "we're only human" card and equate your work to one of a surgeon's, you're one of the worst type of people. Imagine what else we can use that excuse for. I'm sorry I stole from your store, but even the top surgeons can make mistakes. We're only human. I'm sorry I murdered your cat, but even the top surgeons can make mistakes. We're only human. I'm sorry I demonetized your entire channel and unjustly privated my birthday video, but even the top surgeons can make mistakes. We're only human. human, so Bobby goes and begs his teacher to help him with his father's genes. Also, I just noticed that the iron boards are tables in the background. I don't know whether that's creative or condescending. Since this is Thanksgiving, the art director or someone on the team opted to give the entire episode nice and warm colors, which subtly puts you in the mood for a nice meal. And what better day than Thanksgiving? And I know you would probably say something along the lines of, well, Jay, they aren't idiots, they wouldn't put snow. And to that I would say, yeah, of course not. But they could have easily opted to not change the weather at all and simply imply that it's Thanksgiving, and I appreciate that they went down the route that they did. The animation isn't as stilted as this is the 7th season, but you may think so with how Hank is walking here. This is not the case. He's just wearing those new, quote, fancy pants because apparently Hank only has one pair of jeans. And let's be honest, Hank looks better in these than the other pants. So Dale gets the $1 million check from Bill, who doesn't do anything weird with the check so it can't be cashed because Bill is an idiot. Again, I will get to that soon, but I just wanted to update you on what's going on based on where I'm at in the episode in this point. So let's finally get into why I picked this episode. Bobby fixes Hank's pants and Peggy doesn't like that. I'm going to rip the band-aid straight off with my execution here. Usually I like to lean into the problem and have you guys, my viewers, sort of figure out this as I narrate, but nope, this time let's get straight into the dirty work. Peggy is jealous that Bobby has fixed Hank's pair of pants. At this point in the episode, this is all he has done that was seen as good in Hank's eyes. So what's the alternative, you may ask? Leave his pants ruined? Or maybe you wanted to fix them, despite saying within this episode that if you did, because you can't make straight lines with your seam work, it wouldn't come out as great. Also, there's this tiny, small, insignificant fact that you're trying to compete with your son. Like, why? Now, before someone types a long paragraph in the comments, let me state that I'm aware of what I said earlier. I said earlier that Hank was written to be stubborn, so because he was that, I shouldn't be upset. And here, Peggy is written to be envious and jealous of her son, so because she was that, I shouldn't be upset, right? Wrong. No, I'm not being a hypocrite or contradicting because there's implications and connotations that go with what I say. In Pet Sitter Pat, Patrick was written to be a bad pet sitter, and people complained because Patrick was unlikable because of how bad of a pet sitter he was. Now, just because he executed on what he was written to be, and because his character was probably like that, doesn't mean that we should automatically like it. The difference between Hank versus Peggy, or Patrick, is intent, and knowing this one thing. If you write a character that is rude, mean, or annoying, you shouldn't be surprised when your audience finds that character to be rude, mean, or annoying. You don't get brownie points if you write a bad cartoon to be bad. It isn't automatically good because you intended for it to be bad, and it actually was bad. And the same goes here. I am willing to overlook Hank because his stubborn actions do not offend me. For one, as you saw here, he's clearly not bothered by Bobby, so his words hold little merit. Peggy, on the other hand, does not change from the beginning of the episode and stays the same towards the end of the episode. So no, I don't care that Peggy was written to be envious. It's still annoying and incredibly infuriating to watch. Why would I want to watch Peggy, the mother of Bobby, be envious of her own son, Bobby, doing this one thing? Yes, more happens later in this episode, but this one thing, why? So Bobby ends up cooking as well, doing all of this for his home ec class, by the way. Oh yeah, curse Bobby for wanting to have good grades in school.
I can handle the heat, so get out of my kitchen, because with pork, the slightest mistake could kill us all.
Or maybe you can stick your head in the oven and go kaboom. I would eat your roasted remains, but a salt intake of that large quantity would leave me severely ill. Plus, I don't know what kind of problem you have, but I don't want to take any risks if it's contagious. So we finally get to the subplot, at least one half of what I want to say, with Dale cashing in the check. So Dale goes to cash the check, and the bank teller tells Dale that Bill does not have enough money. In fact, she even tells Dale the exact amount of money he has, which is suspicious of this bank. One, you did not press enough buttons to get to the screen you have, unless you have a hotkey on your computer that brings you to Bill's account, which, well, I have several questions. Two, I'm sure you cannot cash a check that high without a layer of security. It's similar to paying for something using a $50 bill. People always take that added security risk that comes with it because it's a large amount of money. Three, if Bill did not have that much money in his account, why would this bank be totally okay with giving him all the money that they can? Wouldn't this check be invalid because the funds don't match? Four, and this one's the most head scratching. Can a check that's higher than the amount on a person's bank balance deemed so important that a bank teller can just spout their balance like that? I wouldn't want anyone to know the exact amount of money I have in the bank, even if I did write a check. Imagine the chaos that would come with that. Everything you buy, at the bottom of your receipt, it would tell the person you bought whatever from how much money you have left. Mass financial hysteria would ensue. None of this really works, but it's not a big subplot because the bigger part is much more on Peggy, so don't expect this to derail the episode. In fact, King of the Hill is really good with making subplots. It's nothing important, but it's complete. So Bobby comes in with his pot roast, which if you remember, Peggy kicked Bobby out of the kitchen to make pork chops and asks Hank to sign a form that says that he cooked it himself and that it tasted good. Now, does any of that sound like Bobby trying to steal Peggy's thunder? No, he's trying to pass the class. But no, Peggy continues to complain because Hank said that he would rather have Bobby's pot roast today and her pork chops tomorrow. Now listen, it's Peggy, and she's very possessive and unnecessarily competitive because her ego gets the best of her. But I don't have too many positives to say about her. Let the man cook. Let the man pass his class. And I would like to reiterate, that's your son. Why are you trying to one-up your son? And before someone says that a son is like any other person, mind you, we're talking about conservatives in Texas in the 90s who go to church and preserve their morals. Hank and Peggy love family values. So Peggy whines to Nancy, "Oh, he didn't eat my food." And Nancy gives her the idea of doing something out of this magazine. Unfortunately, or fortunately, she doesn't do it right.
Dude, don't touch it, Bobby. Those nests could be full of fleas and ticks.
Not if you take the birds out. They'll build another nest. They're not just gonna let their eggs sit there on the sidewalk.
You're messing with the environment to get back at your son? Your own flesh and blood? Why are you like this? It's not even that important. Even to the great Peggy Hill. What happened to your other hobbies? Like writing or going on adventures? What about your teaching job? Nope, you went on a giant tirade about men and women's roles in the home, and here you are.
Ernst, imagine if the man you love found someone else to cook for him and clean for him and make his pants.
Well, to be fair, you are 1-1 with messing up Hank's pants with your cleaning and not apologizing for it, so screw you. And 2, you're a 1-1 for messing up the environment to get back at your son and not apologizing for it, so screw you. And 3, your pot roast made Hank do that face, whereas Bobby needed only a few moments in the kitchen to one-up you, so you're 1-1 with losing your husband's interest in cooking, but also looking like an idiot when your son is only doing this for homework and still not apologizing for any of this, so screw you.
Yeah, he may be getting an A in home ec, but at what cost, huh? At what cost to me?
Your ego, which should have been sanded and watered down more like this. Peggy, you deserve another person in your life who is everything that you wanted to aspire to be, but is just better than you. I'm sorry if that sounds mean, but you can't tell me the alternative is better. Would you, Peggy, be happy if Bobby received low grades in home ec and not try just so that you can have this imaginary kitchen superiority? Or are you saying Bobby merely doing his homework that involves the kitchen is that much of a threat to your family dynamic? Either way, this is not fun to watch at all. We also get Bill learning that he has no money and Bobby and Hank bonding. Remember that such a sin, according to the perspective of Peggy, means that you should be in the 9th circle of hell. Bonding, something that in other episodes, because this is season 7, this is something that she most likely wanted them to do. So as the Hill family settle for bed, Peggy tries to make love with Hank, but her hair is turning him away from any thought of that.
Ugh.
What's wrong? Is Bobby's cooking coming up on you?
I think it's all that beauty stuff in your hair. Kinda has that new car smell.
Bobby, put away your robot and go to bed. Your father's feeling ill. I think it was something he ate.
Lying to get back at your son. Wow, you completely sound like the victim. So yeah, Hank and Bobby bond. And for anyone who watches the show, they don't really bond. Bobby is into a lot of new stuff and a lot of stuff that Hank doesn't like. And Hank wants Bobby to be one way, but Bobby wants to be another way. So them bonding is a big deal. So imagine if they found the one thing to bond over. I mean, isn't part of parenthood building up your child to take care of themselves? Or is it just me? Peggy goes to sleep sad and I don't care. They should have set her outside. She needs to learn that her scope of problems are not problems. I'm 150% sure that once home ec is done, Bobby will go on to the next thing because he would have learned enough at least to cook and take care of himself, and he's not one to exert extra effort. So again, then I don't see any problem here. Now, should Hank make a bigger effort to console Peggy? Fine, sure, but it's not his responsibility to take care of her giant ego.
Hey, Peggy.
Maybe for you it is. I was expecting you to say good morning.
Proof that Peggy doesn't listen to people, but rather waits for them to finish. So we get to the biggest part of my entire assessment of Peggy: blatant hypocrisy or idiocy. Now, for all of my viewers, let's just set up some background information about my responses to blatant hypocrisy or idiocy. We have the Big Fairy Share Scare almost 2 years ago from the time this goes up on my channel, and in that, there was a moment where Jorgen did not explain anything to Timmy about him sharing with perfect little Chloe, which led to a giant rant from me. You have Girly Squirrely, where Cosmo and Wanda blatantly shoved their wands in stomach acid after turning into cans of food in the forest for bears, which led to a giant rant from me. You have Finally a Lesson, where the existence of that episode led to all of their previous episodes of that nature being negated in terms of their message, which led to a giant rant from me. You also have Fairly Odd Pet, where a giant animated related plot hole led to a giant rant from me. And lastly, you have the King of the Hill episode, Death in Texas, which I did review, in which Peggy and a metal detector in a max prison plot hole led to an inconsistent plot, which got a giant rant out of me. As sporadic as my upload schedule has been, I don't like inconsistency of this nature within cartoons. Cartoons do not have to be logical, but if a viewer is taking out of the experience because of something as blatant as the following, then you can understand their confusion.
Look what I found in Bobby's bed. It's a ladies' magazine. You were right about home ec, Hank. It's ruining Bobby. If you ask me, Hank, that boy ain't right.
Alright, sit back, let's assess this. Peggy just said that Bobby shouldn't be looking at stuff like that, despite earlier saying that there is no men and women roles, and that Bobby can do whatever he wants, despite earlier defending Bobby when Hank was acting like the way that she's acting now. You completely flip-flopped on your morals just to one-up your son. You are that deluded in the head to think that your son is taking over everything that you stand for, which is stupid because you still write and you still teach, which you acknowledged earlier in the episode, but you're so deluded that you became a hypocrite. And I don't understand what is so bad about your son passing a class. Like, you're being that one person that you hate, Peggy, and that's not only an idiot, but an idiotic woman who thinks her role is in the kitchen. If you don't think that your role is to be only in the kitchen and to serve your husband, then why are all of your actions about protecting your role to only be in the kitchen and serve your husband? This is why I titled my video the way that I did. Let's just end this already. So Dale and Bill confront each other. Bill thought it was a joke, Dale's taking it serious. Hank ends it with saying that Dale should just give Bill back his money and just forget about it. Peggy takes the Thanksgiving turkey and runs off with it. What are all of you doing? Say something to her. Get out of the street. What kind of aliens just walk up to someone who fell in a face full of turkey and say absolutely nothing, but stand in the street regardless? She leaves her bike, or Bobby's bike, right on the sidewalk for anyone to take, and
I would rather share it with a man who needs me. A man who is also alone on Thanksgiving because of the stigma society attaches to his unconventional sexual appetites.
This is my wife, Claudia.
You have a family that loves you?
Alright, I'm gonna stop you there. You are mad, Peggy. You are absolutely insane. In no part in this episode did Hank or Bobby even insinuate that they didn't love you. They bonded, and for once they bonded without you. That doesn't mean that they don't love you. All that means is that they wanted to do it by themselves. Bobby did nothing wrong. Hank did nothing wrong. But no, she cries, she gets her way. This is one of the worst episodes in the entire show, but that's goodbye normal jeans. What do you think of this episode? Can you play devil's advocate? What do you think about Peggy Hill? Let me know in the comments down below. The positives and negatives are quite clear for me. The positives are the good side plot, the bonding between Bobby and Hank, and the comedy. The negatives are Peggy Hill. I'm done going on. This review is longer than I wanted it to be, but you know what? I am thankful that I don't have to live with the Peggy Hill. I'm thankful that she didn't do any harm to Bobby because Bobby didn't take her hints, and I'm thankful for all of you for watching this far. You know what else I'm thankful for? T-Blocks. It's a monthly subscription subscription service that sends you a personalized merchandise based off of the interest you tell them. They are growing, and as a person who has received not one but multiple shirts from them, I can personally say that they're very nice. If you want to support the channel, please check them out. They have their own artists as well as external artists, and if you don't like the t-shirt design, you can exchange it, so you're getting tons of value there. Oh, and the best part, T-Blocks is the opposite of Peggy Hill. The code is ALPHAJTBX, and you can get 10% off your first month. So if you like it, then there you go. Make sure to follow me at the Alpha J Show on Twitter and join my public Discord. I'm getting back into the swing of having at least one voice chat on my public Discord per week. And if you have any requests, whether it be a character clash or maybe the latest episode of Blah, or maybe another episode of King of the Hill, let me know in this specific video here. It's going to be in the description below, as well as the card above. It's my request video. I'm taking a lot of them for December and the months going forward in the new year. If you really like this video, I highly suggest watching my King of the Hill playlist for more King of the Hill videos. Make sure to subscribe and feel free to consider my Patreon. As always, I hope your time is well spent, and Alpha out.